as much as this is about a book about coming home, about leaving home, and maybe even about finding home in strange places, it's also about finding a way to think about home. And I wonder what you learned or maybe unlearned as you were writing the book.
There was just a lot more experimentation than what ended up in the final book. So I was really pushing things very aggressively in all kinds of directions and trying to find, the sound of things. And I was really interested in the sound of childhood and how to make sound work on the page and how, our sounds are made up and why we speak like we do, why we sound like we do, those sorts of things. And at some point, because I was so addicted to the writing, the atmospherics, the book just lost control. It was all over the place. It was massive. It went here, it went there. And it was actually the two things that kind of concentrated was the post-election violence. Like, the book immediately became a lot more aggressively political, because then it just became not just the locked world of the child in that place and others, but the child witnessing this changing world as well. And that, I think, helped focus the book a little bit.
Just talking about that focus and the thing that actually makes that end bit happen. When I look at the title, one day I will, and here you've underlined it, I will write about this place. And in my head I've always said one day I will write about this place in a more gentle way. But every time I look at it, I think he's challenging himself. It's almost as if you're psyching yourself up to do something that you have to do. Do you think that this was something that you had to write?
Yeah, of course, you're always because I'm a reader of fiction. Not even memoirs. So it's a quite weird thing that the first full-length book was non-fictional. But I needed to work through this book to sort of also come up with my own philosophy of what to write means and how to write, that's one. But I was not those people who scribbled when I was a kid. I didn't start writing, I think, until I was in my 20s. But because I was always reading, always, life was big. Books didn't interrupt life interrupted books. So what used to happen, and still does, is that I'd be watching things and I'd be making I'd be writing it in my head, sort of. So I think that I've always been writing. So I've been how do I frame it? Framing it. So for me, the idea of that freedom to imagine and the boldness of being free to imagine is something, I had to get to a point, I think, to be a writer and to be a successful writer in Kenya, whatever that means, you have to break away from what you think people want to hear, what the syllabus in your head is telling you, is the invisible syllabus you think someone is making, but to actually find your own thing to really say. And that's actually unbelievably difficult because we've been so conditioned to really inhabit inside the syllabus and be safe there.
But I wonder if you then feel that after having done this that maybe now it's time for fiction, or yeah. Can you talk about it? What's coming next?
Writing this book gave me an enormous amount of confidence because I work in cycles, and I think it's been a 10-year-old cycle of the stuff that I wrote that made my name somehow as a writer, and then the stuff that now I was writing of the hangover of those skills I had built. So then over 10 years, I've been rebuilding skills now to carry me for another season. Or hopefully 10 years, I don't know. And so I feel that preparing this book really prepared me for that. The difficulty though is to come out of these characters and this space and find the other one that's going to be fiction. That's been hard. So, but I'm relaxed. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
I noticed as you were reading, there were things the audience were laughing at that I didn't necessarily get. And even though it's the same book in all those markets, your audiences are different audiences. People are going to get the slang and so on. And I wondered how that feels for you, when, especially now with this launch where it's, people who know what those little bits of jokes mean that maybe the rest of the world is missing. How are those different readings of the book? for you? Do you absorb them? Do they matter?
It's wonderful. No, the good thing, I mean, I think good writing is always more about how it's received than how you perceive it, because you are giving the imagination to the reader. So, unlike a film where in a film the person is doing the seeing for you and the hearing for you, in good writing, the reader is the one doing that job. So, when you've published a book, it's no longer yours. And the reader takes what they want of it and they imagine their own things from it. But of course, it's very calculated also to resonate here. And so it's so important for me to be like how people receive it. I know there are going to be weird things, like it's very difficult, like literature, but I think it's a very readable book. I think I think it's an easy and complex book. I hope it's funny. I hope people feel both disturbed and energized by it. Yeah. Okay. So I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Yeah.
When many people write memoirs, particularly politicians, they use it to distort history and also to kind of clean themselves up, right? Giving that angle. You're a writer writing memoirs, and at some point you've mentioned that you thought the book went and became a little bit political. To what extent in your book are you kind of cleaning up the distortions?
I was not interested at all in talking to Moi's memoir, or Kenyatta's memoir, or anything else. But I'm a citizen of Kenya. And if this is a book about the observing of life from 1977 to 2000 and whatever, are you kidding me? There's just no way that that person's view of the world and all the political things that are happening are not part of it. But what they are is they're not foregrounded. And I think that was an important thing to me, because I think that is also to be political.
To one, as follow up to some extent from that question, one of the points that you've made in conversation previously is the issue of political philosophy for Kenya, and the issue of the foundation of society, which cannot exist without some kind of coherent political philosophy. How much of your personal ambition in terms of a citizen's philosophy do you see as invested in that book or reflected in that book?
It's a book about a person trying to be good in the world. It's a book about a person who lived among, I call them, the post-Berlin Wall IMF generation, where the guys who saw boom fall, boom went, and then things fell, and then you crawl your way back up to that. That's my generation, you know. So in a certain sense, if it's political in that certain sense, it's like to be trying to be good in the world, like and tripping all the time, and trying to be good in the world, trying to be a good Kenyan, trying to be a good citizen, trying to be a good citizen. So there's a lot of that in that particular sense. So if for me, of course, the ideas of integrity, and that's why I think that there's a lot of honesty in this book. The kind of fake moral world of the hypocrites. And it's not which church you go to or whatever, it's just a certain, like, dark, vindictive thing covered in a nice face. It's something I'm viscerally against, and I try to kind of attack a lot in the book and expose myself to being wrong.
I'd like to close off by saying that one of the things for me about this book was that very challenge, go and think about it. Because as we follow you from childhood into young adulthood, there really is a challenge all the time to see the world around us, to think about it, and to find ways of writing about it. And I think it's something that I'm deeply grateful for. And I know that, well, I hope that the other readers will be too. And so before the signing, I'd just like everyone to join me in saying congratulations. Well done. Good work. Yeah.
Hadi Kampala, mwendo wa joka sio haraka, kutoka Kisumu hadi Kisauni, mama joka linanyonya nyinyi wahuni, linatamba wahuni.